All my bars are heavy, so baby, are you ready? We gon' be here all night until I spot the proper setting. Something like a bench press, your body's tight, there's no regretting. Take you up into the heights to view the sight of no forgetting.
All my bars are heavy, heavy, heavy. All my bars are heavy, heavy, heavy. We gon' be here all night
until I spot the proper setting. Something like a bench press, your body's tight, there's no regretting. So baby, you're indigenous flow, repetitions with as my vision gets this vigorous growth. My penmanship is the benefit of something fifth dimensional. Makes no difference when I'm here to rinse down their whole visual and wreck it like a vehicle. My wrist stuck in the 80s, they all want is pushing up daisies, but I won't let none of them play me. The feeling's amazing, botanical herbal, I'm facing, relaxing on good meditation. I'm feeling like me, awarded with much celebration. I'm reaching my soul destination, building my patience, releasing the past education that left us with no motivation. Repelling on wax and tripping from flipping the maps. The self don't know how to react, feelings attached. Distraction is really the mask, your vision can't see past the facts. They say life is hard, rejection the truth is in fact. Illusion works better when trapped, technology's tagged with everything bent out of whack. No nation or tribe, just black. What everybody choosing, envy of G's, with plenty opportunities to be in all you can be. You still find enough time to be a hater and thief, a slayer of peace, naysayers of we. All my bars are heavy, so baby, are you ready? We gon' be here all night until I spot the proper setting. Something like a bench press, your body's tight, there's no regretting. Take you up into the heights to view the sight of no forgetting.
All my bars are heavy, heavy, heavy. All my bars are heavy, heavy, heavy. We gon' be here all night
until I spot the proper setting. Something like a bench press, your body's tight, there's no regretting. So baby, you're no intermission, my vibe is risen while knowledge kicking. I'm positively, absolutely no oppositions in conference, nor fucking with me. I'm stating the facts with no perjury, while killing tracks without a murder scene. Have you heard or seen this version of a king who interprets things without a cursed dream? My courtesy is a burdening with a purposey of emergency. Your current need is a burning deed, and I was wondering when you'll learn to see. I'm flourishing from a burning seed. My family roots are burning trees. My pen strikes with a thundering. I live life like a submarine. So active as this passage, package plastics. These backwards basket bastards, Hasbro has-beens. Entrapment, factions, fractions, lost in traffic. Got zero matching classics in this rap shit. And everybody looking down from the step. See you when you're climbing up with their foot on your neck. They gon' call you what they want without the proper respect. A dot on the check, a marvelous threat. Wow.
The beat plug, the beat plug.
You gotta know who you are to know who you are not. Max Ahab to our source, to our creator, the great spirit, that is Amma and Abba. Max Shalawam to you as the rare ones. You gotta know who you are to know who you're not. And when you know who you are, and you recognize who you are, well then you recognize who you're not. And right here at the Naturalist, well, you already know this is an ongoing investigation. And as a rare one, you know how we do when we surf the wave. when we tap into the flow of Amma, well, this channel becomes unique. And as I speak to Amma, well, my channel within the wave becomes one of a kind. Because as I'm surfing the wave, it was brought to my attention that these hijacks they refer to as rabbis intended to hide the Shemitic Hebrew flow for the term natural. See, it was in the beliefs that the ancient Israelites had no separation between that which was nature and that which was Hawa. And because they had no separation, well, technically, according to these ancient rabbis, or these hijacked rabbis, there was no flow for the term natural. But I already knew within this flow because we're building on frequency, and our frequency, it's a close-knit vibration. This vibration of ours is specific just for us. So of course, surfing the wave, speaking to Amma, I came across the word in our Shemitic Hebrew flow for natural. And the term that I came across was teva. And so I realized that this term teva, well, it's ancient frequency when we're speaking in frequency. Because once again, this is all about the frequency. I asked if it was phonetically correct in the ancient tone, if the frequency of the word teva would actually be teba. And I was wondering, if I put Hawa teba, what would that mean? So this is what we're dealing on. This is what we're surfing the wave on, this Hawa teba. So when I asked about this Hawa teba, surfing the wave with ChatGTP, well, it told me natural Bahawa, Khan. Now you're moving into something that actually does align better with Hebrew linguistic structure, even if it's still a constructed philosophical phrase rather than a historical one. And we got to keep this in mind because, of course, this wouldn't be recorded as something historically accurate, but we're within the flow, within the frequency, within the charge of our Hawa. And this is to restore our dabar, which is our word, our language. So of course we understand this wouldn't be necessarily recorded historically, at least not yet. So Max Ahab, I hope you're ready to Anion. We are on the way. Number one, we have the structure of Teba Hawa. Conceptually, the transliteration is Teba Hawa. Okay, then it gives us the breakdown. Teba meaning nature, the embedded order. Hawa being the source of being. So structurally, this would read like nature of Hawa, or the natural order belonging to Hawa. This actually follows as a normal Hebrew construct pattern called smikhut, which is a construct relationship. And then here they give us the examples, So we have these as the examples, as in the Torah of Moshe, as in the house of David, and the Eretz Yisrael for the land of Israel. Your phrase works the same way. Teba Hawa equals nature of Hawa. Why this works better than Hawa Teba? Generally, Hebrew avoids fusing roots together in one compound word. Instead, it uses word pairing. So Hawa Teba not Hebrew structure. Teba Hawa follows a natural Hebrew grammatical pattern. So realizing this flow, instead of saying Hawa Teba, I switched it around to say Teba Hawa because it kind of follows the same pattern as Spanish, right? Which is the intention of the word being first, and then, the rest following after. Okay. So here we have Teba Hawa, meaning in the sense you're expressing. Philosophically, your phrase would imply the natural order that flows from the source of being, or in your alignment language, the embedded pattern of existence expressed through Hawa. Pronunciation of the older phonetic sense, using the older sound pattern we discussed, Teba Hawa would sound roughly like Teba Hawa, with B sound instead of V, the breath-like ending of Hawa. This keeps it closer to the older phonetic field you're trying to restore. And it knows I'm on the restoration, because this is a restoration for the Shabbatah, right here on the Magic Ether Bus. So as we continue to surf the waves, we have conceptually it mirrors an ancient idea. Even though the exact phrase isn't historical, the concept behind it appears repeatedly in the Hebrew scriptures, especially where the world is described as sustained by the breath of the Creator. Halahuah. For example, in Book of Psalms, the natural world is portrayed as continually animated by divine breath. So the world view is essentially breath, life, earth, creatures, and then cycles, all part of one living order. So hypothetically, your phrase Teba will linguistically communicate the natural order of Hawa, or creation as the embedded pattern of the source. So yes, structurally and conceptually, it aligns much better than the earlier form. One more fascinating layer that might interest you, the root Teba, to imprint, embed, suggests nature as a stamp or seal placed into reality, which means your phrase Teba Hawa can be understood poetically as the imprint of Hawa. That meaning actually fits remarkably well with the ancient Hebrew way of describing creation. So you see, we're surfing the wave in our ancient Shemitic Hebrew cosmology, as we see if it wants to resonate with my Gemini twin, that fire water concept. We're going to go ahead and continue to surf the wave. I hope you guys are feeling well. Max Shalawam. We are back for another. And you know how we do right here at The Naturalist. So go ahead and get you some pure water. It's time to charge up. Anion. So to understand that there is no separation between that which is nature or natural from Hawa, well then we recognize and understand why they had to hide the term natural in the Western Shemitic Hebrew frequency. Because they understand there is no separation. So if you're in the recognition that you are natural, within nature, a native, well then you are connected directly to source. Alright? So I went ahead and asked, since we're now talking Teba in the frequency, if Taba fits. Alright? And of course, this is Chat GTP, so it's going to respond first with the historical records. And we're getting it at all angles, man. We have to surf the wave through AI and surf the wave through historical records just to get the drip. So it says the actual root behind teva, the Hebrew word for nature, comes from the root taba. That's what I was saying, right? Because phonetically, the I sound comes before the e sound. But is still a phonetic flow within our Shemitic tongue. So to do without it could be a mistake. But we're just surfing the wave, right? So here it gives us the sound and the breakdown. All right, tet for T, bet for B, ayin with the deep guttural or guttural. All right. So the full ancient pronunciation would have been closer to teba or teba, with the ayin weakened or disappeared in later speech. It became teba. Why taba or taba is not the same? If you say taba, two things change. The vowel pattern changes, the final ayin disappears completely. Ancient Hebrew roots usually keep all three consonants even if the last one becomes quiet. So linguistically, in the form teva, status is historically the correct form. Teba being closest to the ancient pronunciation, and taba is a simplified form, but not the historical pattern. And again, we're speaking within the flow. It says the vowel pattern matters. Hebrew roots plug into patterns called mishkalim. The pattern for this noun is roughly seka. So teba, changing it to taba, moves it outside the standard pattern. However, in spoken frequency, if your goal is phonetic restoration toward earlier sounds, then teba will already be closer than teva. So your progression will look like this. And so they give us the Paleo Hebrew, teba, the biblical Hebrew, teba, the modern Hebrew, teva. Your instinct to restore B instead of V is historically correct. Meaning of the root still holds. Regardless of pronunciation, the root teba still carries the same idea: to sink, embed, imprint, which is why nature became the extended meaning. See what's going on? It's the idea of an imprint embedded into existence. So to be the imprint of Hawa is to be embedded into existence. So in summary, teba is the closest ancient pronunciation. Teba, acceptable simplified form. Teva, modern Hebrew pronunciation. Taba is phonetic reinterpretation, not historical. Now watch this, right? So if you're seeking something closer to the older sound field, the most linguistically grounded form would be teba or teba Hawa. If you're exploring these older sound structures, natural by Hawa, there is actually another fascinating layer we could examine. The roots teba and teva appear in ancient Shemitic languages in context relating to marking, sealing, or patterning reality. They may even connect more closely to the imprint of the source concept you're intuitively reaching toward. So I find it funny that it knew that we were already speaking within frequency, because this is a restoration, right, Comes? So it says, however, spoken in frequency. We know this isn't historically recorded because this flow is for the rare ones, it's for the few. Yet it still holds wata when we're speaking in frequency, which is why our wave, our vibration is most important. Furthermore, I find it crazy how it's telling me it already knew where I was going with the taba. right? I was already surfing the wave with this Taba. So here it goes and says that Teba and Tava, which would be this Taba, actually share roots that mean the same thing. So surfing the wave, right? I was like, well, Khan, let's go deeper into the roots of this Teba and Teva, which it now says is the word Tawa. So it says, natural Bahawa, Khan, let's go deeper into the roots of Teba and Tawa. Because what you are sensing touches a very ancient Shemitic pattern about imprinting, marking, and the ordering of existence. Teva. This root is the one that produced Teva, meaning nature in later Hebrew. Core ancient meanings. The verb originally meant to sink into, to embed, to press down, to stamp, or imprint. This is why in later Hebrew it also came to mean coinage, a coin stamped with a seal, an imprint or molded form. You see what's going on? Molded form. So the deeper sense of Teba is the embedded pattern impressed into reality. Nature in this sense is not random, it is structured, stamped order. That's why the word later became associated with the natural order of the world. See what's going on? Allahu Akbar. The idea of stamping reality in ancient cultures, a seal ring would press an image into wax or clay. The Hebrew idea behind Teba reflects the same concept. Reality bears an imprint, so metaphorically, mountains, rivers, animals, cycles of seasons are seen as patterns stamped into the fabric of the world. This concept aligns with your interpretation of creation as the imprint of Hawa. You see what's going on? As the imprint of Hawa. Says now we move into the related but opposite concept with this Tawa and Tahawa, right? The word Tahu appears in the creation account in book of Genesis. Tahu Bahu, which is the formless and void. Meaning of the root behind Tahu carries ideas like unformed, chaotic, unstructured, wandering, desolation. So while Teba equals embedded pattern, Tahu equals the absence of pattern. So to be this Tawa, this Taba, this Teba is to be an embedded pattern. So as nature, we are the personified impression, the expression of Hawa through embedded pattern that is structurally the code. Because we have pattern versus unformed state. The ancient Hebrew cosmology often moves between these two states. Tahu equals the unformed chaos, Taba or Tawa being the embedded order. Creation in the biblical narrative is essentially ordering Tahu into structured reality, or in simple terms, chaos into patterned existence. That is to take something formless and to give it form and shape, as in our framer and shaper, our Amma, our Abba, Allahu. So out of this primordial substance, out of the wild, out of that which is tamed, we get embedded, coded, brought into frequency as patterned existence. Possible Shemitic connections. Across Shemitic languages, similar roots appear. For example, in the Arabic language, taba, tawa, taba equals to imprint, stamp, mark. Also used for natural disposition or innate nature. This parallel is striking. In Arabic thought, taba equals nature, which comes from the same idea, the stamped character of existence. So the conceptual lineage is very ancient across Shemitic cultures. And this is how Akan taps into the wave, into the flow, because this is about the frequency, the restoration. I told you it's happening right before our eyes, Khan. And channeling with Amma, we know she gonna talk back. She gonna speak back. So here we have the philosophical meaning. Putting the words together reveals a powerful framework. The concept and the meaning. Tahu being an undifferentiated potential. Teba being a structured pattern embedded in creation. With intention. With purpose. With Ahab. Manifestation. So nature, Taba, is essentially the ordering of primordial unformed state. You see what's going on? The ordering of the primordial unformed state. In a sense, you're exploring your phrase earlier, Teba Hawa, can be understood poetically as the imprint of Hawa upon existence, or the ordered pattern through which the source expresses life. Even though that exact phrase isn't historically recorded, the conceptual framework aligns strongly with ancient Shemitic thinking. And this should let you know how Akan thinks, surfing the wave with our creator. One more hidden layer. There is another fascinating detail. The Hebrew letter Tet, or Tat, the first letter of Teba, was historically associated with hidden good, potential contained within. So symbolically, the word begins with the idea of latent potential being formed into structure. So in the deepest sense, Tahu equals the unformed possibility. Teba equals the pattern imprint of life, which fits remarkably well with the worldview that creation is the ordering of existence through the breath of source. And this is a natural fact, So when we see that this Teba is Tawa, and that this Tawa is that which is nature, that which is natural, the imprint, the stamp, the impression of our innate nature, that is the embedded pattern into existence, an ancient frequency. So with accumulating all of this, it was brought to my realization as we see that we are Tawa Hawa, Tawa Hawa, which is natural by Hawa. Tawa Hawa. For the rare ones, For there is no separation between the Tawa Hawa. You cannot separate that which is natural from Hawa, because to be natural is to be directly connected to Hawa. And this is why they had to hide the term natural, because it is directly connected to our Creator, the Great Spirit. And these hijacks are in trouble, because surfing the wave right here at the naturalist, you have to know who you are to know who you're not. And we shall continue. Ahab. So as we got from the ChatGTP, right, this Tawa meant to be an imprint, as a natural one was to be an imprint of Hawa. So let's surf the wave on this imprint. It says imprint, which is to mark by pressure, stamp, to impress on the mind or memory, to impress on the mind or memory, to have or to stamp, engrave, imprint, mark, impression, imprint, to impress, imprint, from the Latin imprere or imprimere, which is to impress, imprint, into, in, on, or upon, to impress, or to press, hold fast, cover, crowd, compress. Alright, an imprint, mark, or impression made by printing or stamping. Alright, imprint, to be the imprint, which is to impress on the mind and memory. So Hawa, for the Tawa, Hawa, the natural ones, the rare ones, the chosen. Hawa has impressed on the mind or the memories of those natural. So, continuing to surf the wave, we have this impress. And impress is to have a strong effect on the mind or heart. To have a strong effect on the mind or heart. And where is it that our code, which is our laws, our natural laws of Hawa, where were they placed according to our script? It says stamp deeply in the mind, stamp deeply in the mind. Also literal for make a permanent image in. You see that? Make a permanent image in. To make a permanent image in as the image of Hawa. So Tawa Hawa is to be the image of Hawa. To be natural by Hawa. That is the impression, which is that has a strong effect on the mind or heart. So Hawa has a strong effect on our mind and heart, as we are his permanent and her permanent image. You see what's going on? As Tawa Hawa. Okay. So we're talking about impress. That which is the imprint. To be the imprint of Hawa. Right? To be embedded, to press down, to stamp or imprint. An imprint or molded form. Tawa Hawa. Natural by Hawa. The embedded pattern impressed into reality. Nature in this sense is not random, it is structured. That is why the word later became associated with the natural order of the world. We are the impression of Hawa, which is the permanent image. We are the permanent image of our creator, our source, which is the flow. Tawa Hawa from my Shabbatah. So as we Anion right here on the Magic Ether Bus, it is important, extremely important to know within our flow who you are. So you know who it is you are not. So we're going to continue to surf the wave. I hope you are doing well. Shabbat Shalawam. Let go. You already know, when we tribe up within the flow, it's always a collective effort, a collective vibration, a collective frequency. That is the Shabbatah, the wave. You know what I'm saying? And Max Ahab to my ox hitting me up, man. I appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? My ox hitting me up on IG. I'm about to tap in with y'all right now. I appreciate all the the energy, man, because this is what this is all about, the energetic exchange, okay? And with that being said, this drip right here, as we see, is from my cousin. My cousin sent this over to me. And this is a collective wave within the flow, man. It's always tribal. It's been tribal from the jump. And whenever my cousin sends over something, you know what I'm saying? When he sends some drip, it's almost automatic. We tapping in. So let's go ahead and start the wave. Anion.
The potential consequences of first cousin marriages are tragic and devastating. My grandparents are first cousins. 5 of their daughters died in childhood, and 3 of my uncles were born deaf. At the time, no one knew why, because the facts were not known. Today, the medical facts are established, but the practice continues. Here in Bradford, where the Akhtars live, 75% of Pakistanis marry their first cousins. Anywhere between 4 and 10% of...
She says 75%. 75%. And the practice of first cousin marriage is still going on. Come on, this is what we're talking about. All right, you got to know who you are to know who you're not, to understand who you're not.
The potential consequences of first cousin marriages are tragic and devastating. My grandparents are first cousins. 5 of their daughters died in childhood, and 3 of my uncles were born deaf. At the time, no one knew why, because the facts were not known. Today, the medical facts are established, but the practice continues. Here in Bradford, where the Akhtars live, 75% of Pakistanis marry their first cousins. Anywhere between 4 and 10% of the children in these families will be born with genetic abnormalities.
Genetic abnormalities. Now, this is a practice that is still ongoing, she says, and that 75% of the population of Pakistan partakes in this. One might ask, why is this happening? Why does such things happen? You are surfing the wave right here with the naturalists, and of course we're going to get into it. But we have to highlight how even such statistics are even possible. I mean, how is this even possible, huh? You know what I'm saying? How is this even possible? 75%? It's outrageous.
Consequences of first cousin marriages are tragic and devastating. My grandparents are first cousins. 5 of their daughters died in childhood, and 3 of my uncles were born deaf. At the time, no one knew why, because the facts were not known. Today, the medical facts are established, but the practice continues. Here in Bradford, where
they didn't have the natural facts. This is why it's important that you have your natural facts to be within the wave of this tawa. Tawa, that is to be natural. Tawa. Tawa hawa, natural bahuwa. Surf the wave.
Akhtars live, 75% of Pakistanis marry their first cousins. Anywhere between 4 and 10% of the children in these families will be born with genetic abnormalities. And these illnesses are often fatal. 1/3 of children with diseases caused by recessive genes will die before they turn 5. The disease affecting Mohsin, Hina and Zainab is the direct result of their mother and father being first cousins. Both parents carry the recessive gene that has caused the children's disabilities. If they had married outside of the family, there would have been only a tiny chance of their children being born with the genetic disorder.
If they would have married outside the family, it would have been a tiny chance that these children end up like this. So this is a culture, this is a pattern, this is a way of being, okay? And normally when you get things like this, it's from, you know, times before. This isn't something that just pops up out of nowhere, not anything out of a jack-in-the-box. You know what I'm saying? So this had to be put into play. And if we were talking about tawa, which is to be natural, to be embedded in the pattern of creation, that which gives form to which is chaotic. Well, I don't think anything like this would be considered tawa, huh?
and Zainab is the direct result of their mother and father being first cousins. Both parents carry the recessive gene that has caused the children's disabilities. If they had married outside of the family, there would have been only a tiny chance of their children being born with the genetic disorder. But in the case of the Akhtars as first cousins, the odds narrowed dramatically to a 1 in 4 chance that any child they had would be born with the illness. In the event, 3 of their 6 children were born with the disease. Fatima is the youngest and healthy. She's 7 years old and has had to watch her siblings deteriorate over the years. So what's it like having 2 sisters? Is it fun? What's the best bit?
I play together.
Alright, so considering how we saw just now that 70% of the population practice in this first cousin arrangement, this marriage, this coupling, well, right here at the Naturalist, we always gotta go back to the origin. So surfing the wave, we're going to see how such a thing could even be possible, right? And I'm bringing your attention to Genesis 19. We're going to start at verse 1. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold, now my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nah, but we will abide in the street all night, because they were sent on a mission. These 2 angels were sent on a mission. But Lot doesn't necessarily know what this mission is, right? And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they laid down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. That we may know them. Alright? And when we surf the wave on this, no. Alright? We see all of these different meanings that it can be. Right? To know. Figuratively, literally. Alright? Observation, care, recognition, instruction, designation, punishment, acknowledge, acquaintance. We see kinsfolk and kinsmen, right? Keep these terms in mind. Kinsfolk and kinsmen. Especially as we're talking about Lot. But these men are seeking to know these angels. To know these angels. And from the scriptural standpoint, in the way we're reading it right now, it doesn't give us much intel on exactly how it is that they want to know them. So surfing the wave right here at the Naturalist, you know what we're going to do. We're going to get to the root of it. Anion, let go. So as we take a deep dive into this water, into the wave, you always gotta break down the terms being used to understand what the ancient ones were trying to entail. Alright? Now, as we see the standard form as no. But they're trying to tell us something more detailed, something more specific. And when I'm surfing the wave on these words, as you guys know that we do right here at the Naturalist, we really explored the DNA of such frequencies. So I'm breaking down the different meanings, because as you break it down, they'll show you all the different possibilities, just like a dictionary, right? So the ancient ones wrote in poetic form. All right, to dodge hijacks. Because as we can see, look at all the different meanings. We got number 1, A. To know, to learn to know good and evil. Right? We got 2. Okay, that's not the wave we're surfing. We have B, which is perceive. That's not the wave we're surfing. They have C, which is to perceive and see, find out and discern. They have D, which is discriminate and distinguish. Keep this in mind, right? Another mental note. They have E, which is to know by experience. They have F, which is to recognize, admit, acknowledge, and confess. They have G, which is to consider. Then they have number 2. Which is to know a person, to be acquainted with, to know with, object, especially other gods, strange land, have no knowledge of or acquaintance with, have not heard of. All right. And then we have number 3. And number 3, that is to know a person carnally, of sexual intercourse followed by accusative, man subject. All right. And then it says woman subject. You see what's going on? And then it says man subject and object of sodomy. So they're telling us exactly what kind of time these dudes are on, and specific to the detail that we're reading, because it's backed by this scripture, which is telling us this is exactly the action that was taking place and the intent of these men as they pressed upon these angels. So this is the timing that the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah were really on. And we're going to understand just why Hawa felt a way, and which way did Hawa feel about these inhabitants, and just who these inhabitants are. Right? So it says, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us that we may know them. And as we just got, this specifically means to perform the act of sodomy onto them, to know them personally, carnally, to make these men their subjects. So this is the culture of the Sodom and Gomorrah. And that should, remind you of another flow within our modern time, right? Men who like to do this to other men. And Lot went out the door unto them and shut the door after him and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do yea to them as is good in your eyes. Now, what's crazy is the fact that Lot's offering his daughters, knowing that these men are requesting to know these other men who are really angels carnally. They're more interested in the men. So the fact that Lot's offering his daughters is a bit crazy. And the fact that Lot even offered his daughters, which are virgins, right? They have not known a man, so they're pure. He's offering the purity of his daughters without even offering himself. He didn't even offer himself, nor did he offer his wife. He immediately offered his daughters. So Lot has a good background on how this land of Sodom and Gomorrah works, which should tell you about his mindset as we continue. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, stand back. And they said again, right, stand back. This one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and to shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the man said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place? For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of Hawa, and Hawa has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for Hawa will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his son-in-laws. So if you notice, whenever it comes to Hawa giving a warning or letting, a particular individual know, hey, I'm about to get rid of this, I'm about to destroy a place, he always sends one to give heed, to give warning. And these people never acting, right? They never take on to the warning. They always mock the chosen. And I'm not saying Lot is chosen in this sense, but in an actual sense, he sort of was, because he was spared, right, by Hawa. So to see how those who have the message from Hawa are often mocked just goes to show, right? And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the man laid hold upon his hand, and the hand upon his wife, and the hand upon his 2 daughters. Hawa being merciful unto him, they brought him forth and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? Oh, my soul shall live. So Lot, instead of reaching and trying to go to the mountains as instructed, said, let me go settle in this nearby city, which is still in the countries of Sodom and Gomorrah. And again, we're talking about the way Lot's thinking. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city for which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then Hawa rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Hawa out of the Shamayim. And it's interesting, I thought that this brimstone right here when we're surfing the wave, right? Because I tapped into it and saw that this is stemming from that gopher. As we see, right? That gopher, which is the same type of wood that Noah was instructed to build the ark with. Now that threw me for a loop, because I'm sitting up here realizing, damn, as brimstone is often portrayed and pictured to us as little meteorites, or even small comets that fall from the sky. So understanding this, I'm making the connection back to these so-called stones of fire, right? To these stones of fire. And I'm saying, wow, who's to say that these are actually stones when they can really be trees? This brimstone, this ancient crystallized tree, especially when we're talking about trees and wood. So I just thought that was crazy, because this gopher is also related to sulfur when it refers to this brimstone. Keep that in mind, right? very flammable. So that brimstone was rained down upon Sodom and Gomorrah from the Shamayim that Hawa was overthrowing. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abram got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before Hawa, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass when Hawa destroyed the cities of the plain that Hawa remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. So even though he requested to go to Zoar, he saw the destruction that took place within the neighboring cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he saw how that destruction hit and decided to change his mind, which is why I was bringing up what was actually his mindset to begin with. He was still trying to stay attached to this frequency, so it's leading us to believe that he has a fondness of this culture of Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, so he didn't even make it to the city. Instead, he fled into the mountain like he was instructed. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the seed of our father, that we may preserve the seed of our father, that we may preserve the seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. All right, and there's a couple of things I want to point out. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Anion. Now, before we continue, I wanted to break down even further, right, what's actually being said in our ancient script. And here we have Lot's name. So let's break down Lot's name, right? And Lot's name means a covering. A covering, as into what degree? It says the same as this. So when we click on this, we're talking about a covering, an envelope, right? And it takes us to another one, a veil, a covering. And this is dealing with to wrap closely or tighten in wrap, right? To wrap up, to cast. Now this is very interesting to keep this in mind, right? To cast. To cast. Now we're talking about a covering. Lot's name. It says to cover over, to hide, to wrap up, hiding, as in hidden, secrets, right? Went secretly, wrapped up, to do secretly, secret arts, incantations. You see what's going on? To do secretly, the secret arts, incantations. So this is all within the name that Lot has, right? And we got to understand this, because this is a breakdown as to what goes on. His name also means to cast. Now keep this in mind, right? Pay attention. To cast. So to cover, to cast. To do the secret arts, the incantations. Right? We're talking about Lot. Lot. To do things hidden in secret, the secret arts, incantations. So we can see that they were in this cave, right? And the daughter said, come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Now when we surf the wave on drink, all right, it says to irrigate or furnace a potion. And keep this in mind. To furnace a potion. Potion. It is also a part of this word right here, which is to become tipsy, to satiate, all right, to be influenced, to be drunk, to be tipsy. I'm talking about bent, right? Literally to be bent. But this is also with a potion. And if you keep in mind, we're talking about the secret arts, that which is done secretly, the incantations. All right, so peep what's going on. The other half of this word is this shatal, which is to imbibe, right? To imbibe. So let's go ahead and surf the wave on these frequencies before we go ahead and continue, so we can go ahead and get an idea of what's going on. All right. So here we have this imbibe, which is to saturate, feed liquid into, to soak into. You see what's going on? To absorb into, and on, and upon. It also says to mentally drink in. Mentally. So this is also a mental practice, as in the knowledge and ideas. Mentally drink. So this was a practice. This was a culture of Sodom and Gomorrah. They mentally drank in this wickedness through their knowledge and ideas, and they were saturated in this wickedness, as we'll see. Right? Furthermore, when we carry on to the other word, which was the wine, the yain, right? The yain, which was the wine. All right. So when we surf the wave on this yain, it's giving us intoxication. All right, and let's see if we got everything that's supposed to be entailed. All right. So here we see this is just talking about wine. And again, we're talking about the mindset, right? Also within this drinking. But we don't see anything really entailing anything outside of intoxication right here. So we're going to continue to surf the wave on this intoxication. Calm. Alright, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, we're talking about the wine, right? The fermenting, to be intoxicated. So continuing on with this intoxicating, to be intoxicated is to poison. Is to poison. Simply put, to make drunk. Toxic, see poison. Alright, so when they said that she made a drink, it was a potion. And this potion was a poison. a poison that got their father intoxicated to the point where he did not know when she lay down nor when she arose. And this should sound familiar, as we'll see. All right. So now that we see what's going on and we understand Lot's name, we understand the culture and the practice of what's really going on right here. And it came pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. All right. So, as we see, surfing the wave on Moab, Moab actually meaning an incestuous son, right? An incestuous son of Lot. An incestuous son of Lot. Ammon, Amon. His name being inbred as a son of Lot. Okay, so surfing the wave on this, we see this incest, right? This incest going on. And this incest was taking place after this poisoning, this intoxication. Mind you that Lot's name meant to do in secret, the secret arts, the incantations. Okay? So we're surfing the wave on this intoxicate. Now, when we dive into this incest, it says that incest, right? Incest is the crime. It is the crime of sexual intercourse between near kindred. Incest, lechery, fornication, and directly from unchastity, impious, unchastity, sexual intercourse between close relatives. It is unchaste, impure. All right, impure. It is the opposite of pure. All right, now I told you to keep in mind that Lot's name, right? We were talking how Lot's name meant what? Caste. Now, why is this important? Because when we're surfing a wave on this incest, it's a part of this term caste. And as we see, caste is what? One of the hereditary social groups of India. Breed, race, or unmixed race, cut off or separated, pure to be cut off from. So they put us in a caste system. You see what's happening? They put us in a caste system. All right, the caste system, due to their participation of this incest. And it said that it's a crime. It's a crime. So, continuing on, what is a crime? Well, a crime is the sinfulness. It is the infraction of the laws of Hawa. A crime is a mortal sin, a charge, indictment, accusation, crime, fault, and offense. To decide, to sift, to sieve, to discriminate. It is also a cry of distress. All right, a cry of distress. It is an offense or an offense which is punishable by law or act or omission. All right, which the law punishes in the name of the state. It is the sense of any great wickedness or wrongdoing. Any great wickedness or wrongdoing, deceit, fraud, treachery. So seeing this in crime, seeing how crime is sinfulness and an infraction of the laws of Hawa, well, it made me think, with this wickedness being attached, of the term black. Because in its original frequency, black is just that which is absolutely dark, absorbing all light. The absolutely dark, which is absorbing all light of the color. You see what's going on? Of the color of soot or coal. It had meant burned or dark, that which is dark, black, to burn, or to gleam, to shine, to flash, to blaze, to glow, because you're absorbing all of this light. So because you're able to absorb all this light, one begins to gleam, to shine, to flash, to blaze. You see what's going on? We're talking Etherians, the ether faces. And to show this connection, here's the term swart, right? Being black of a dark hue, right? To be dark colored, black. And when we go down to this term right here, we see that swarthy is dark colored, tawny, and especially reference to skin. So we're talking about a hue, a skin tone, right? We're talking about a skin tone which absorbs all light, allowing us to gleam, shine, blaze, glow like a star. Just like a star, It says the same root produce Blake, which they say means pale. Blake or black from bright, shining, glittering, pale. The connecting notions being perhaps fire, bright and burn, dark, or perhaps absence of color. Now we just got that black is the color. That black is the color. That black is the color. So this is showing me that they had to attach pale to mean the absence of color. Because pale doesn't mean so-called white or light. Pale means fire, bright, which is dark. Because again, we're talking about skin, we're talking about complexion, right? So pale doesn't mean white. Pale means black. Black. To be black, which is a color. So you can't be colorless if the term is black, because black is to absorb all light, which makes us shine, gleam, flash, to blaze and glow. And it was in this recognition that I understood that Cain couldn't have been anything white, because the fact that he was bright, he was an Etherian. So pale does not mean white or light skin, it means black, because we're talking about a color as of complexion. And this is what the hijack did. They had to use a term to immediately become your opposition, because we're talking about parasites, we're talking about leeches, we're talking about a frequency that cannot exist without hosts. Energetic vampires. This is why they put you in cities, concentration camps, to concentrate on your energy. They're vamping on you. So pale cannot mean white. For pale means black and white means pure. And to be, well, you know, Tawa, Hawa, that is the natural order, right? That is the natural order that takes that which is chaotic and bring it into pureness. As we got earlier. Come. We're talking about the imprint of Hawa, creation as the embedded source, the natural order, right? We're talking about where did we get that? Was it this last one? Right here. All right. So out of the chaos, out of the unformed, out of the unstructured, Tawa Hawa, which is the embedded form. So this pale would be the absence, right? But we see that pale means black. Come. So with that being said, we're talking about a natural state of being. And when we're talking about black, well, this was within the natural order of things. It's not until they switch it, right? Because we're still talking about a dark-skinned people in Old English. They attach the meaning of fierce, terrible, wicked to say without light, when we know black absorbs all light, without moral or spiritual illumination. To be bad, to be unlucky, to be wicked. Melis being the root word for melanin. They know what this black is, right? But then they turn around and made it a sin. They said the color of your skin was a sin. You see what's going on? With the sense of dark purpose. So they attached this as a sin. And then they made your skin a crime, which they discriminate you for. They made your skin a crime, but you know you are not an infraction of the laws of Hawa, because you are Tawa Hawa. You are the imprint of Hawa upon existence, the order pattern through which the source of life expresses. You are the hidden good, the potential contained within. This is you. So they made your natural connection to Hawa a crime. Why? Because their reflection, which is not pale, their reflection, which is not pale, their reflection, which is not pale, is a result of their incest, which is a crime. Which is a crime. And a crime is a sinful infraction of the laws of Hawa. So the reason they look the way they look is a result of a crime, of an incestuous crime. A crime that is carried out in secret, which means to cast, right? Incantations. So we see that this crime through incest led to the so-called caste system that made your black swarthy skin a crime. When all we do is absorb all light to shine, to blaze, to glow. You see what's going on? So they had to attach this wickedness to you. And this is how Moab works. Because keep in mind, Lot is the father of Moab. So if Moab is the incestuous son, that means through the Moabites, right, who created the straw man, have now made your complexion a crime. They have now said that your complexion is the sinful nature, which is the infraction of Hawa, that they discriminate you upon. You gotta really surf the wave. Furthermore, we're gonna go ahead and continue to see what else that Hawa think of this nation, these countries of Sodom and Gomorrah. So let's continue. So we see in Genesis 13, and especially at verse 13, that Hawa saw that the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before Hawa exceedingly. All right, so Hawa saw them as wicked, like extremely wicked, which I think is crazy because, you know, this is the switcheroo. And when you dive into chapter 14, when Abram goes to rescue Lot, it says a lot. But right now, we're not going to take a dive into the reading of this entire chapter. Instead, I want to show you the drip that I was able to get just by looking at the names. And we're going to go ahead and break down these names. All right. And we're going to get what's being said in these names. And as we get what's being said in these names, we can kind of understand what Hawa saw in these people. Because Hawa is very descriptive, and the ancient ones let us know the actions of what's to come so we can identify them as the signs align. So let's go ahead and take a dive. Alright, so the first name I wanted to bring your attention to is this title, right? This title. And it says that he was the king of nations. And he was one of the 4 kings. Because you have a battle of 4 versus 5 kings, alright? A total of 9 kings, the 4 versus the 5. So we're looking at this king title. And we're trying to see what his name means, which is the great sun. Alright? And it breaks down to filthiness. Alright, to be fearful. What else do we got? It says fear and reverence. To fear. It says that it also could be from this breakdown. So let's check this breakdown. And this is Dahal, or dead call, right? Dead call, which is fear, to be terrible, to be afraid. It says to slink. To slink. Keep in mind, right? To fear, or to be formidable, to make afraid, dreadful, fear, terrible. Alright, so we're still talking about terrible. It says to fear, to go along with quiet gait, like timid persons, to flee, to withdraw oneself secretly, to make afraid, to terrify. So here we got this in relation to Lot, right? To do secretly. Here we're talking about this title. So this is still within the same flow as Lot, as the father of Moab. Here we have this Zakal breakdown that is attached to it. And it says that this name means afraid, serpents, or even worms. To shrink back, crawl away, crawling, creeping. You see what's going on? To be afraid, a serpent, a worm. This title, this Tadal, this is what his name means. A worm, withdrawal. See what's going on? I.e. serpents as poisonous. So see how we're surfing the wave? Instruments of Hawa's judgment on Israel, as in crawling into the earth to hide. Lot was where? Inside a cave. Surf the wave. Right? It says to creep, to crawl. The creepers of the dust, i.e. the serpents. To fear, to be afraid. To walk with faltering footsteps. So this is the name of the king of nations, this title, who was a Canaanite king, Canaanites. And keep in mind that Sodom and Gomorrah are Canaanite countries. These are Canaanite countries. Alright. So the next name we're going to get into is this Bira. Alright. We're going to surf the wave with this Bira. So this Bira means a son of evil. He was also a king of Sodom. And his name means gift, which is very interesting because when we're building on intoxicate, right? Well, when you look up what gift is, that which is given, good luck. But this good luck, this gift can also be poison. Poison. So when we're talking about this potion that was created, it had poison. This poison was then given as a gift. You see what's going on? Because we're not within the natural flow. Because if you're within the natural flow, then your gift is a natural talent. Again, we're talking Tawa, Hawa. It is a natural talent, perhaps from earlier sense of inspiration, power miraculously bestowed. We're talking about that which is of nature, the powers of the body, the powwow of the body. So to have natural talent as a gift is a completely different frequency than that which this Canaanite is named under. Right? Bera, which is a gift. So this gift being poison, since he is an evil one, a son of an evil one. Okay? And this is this King Bera, which is a king of Sodom. So here we can tell and see the frequency just within the names, what Lot and Abram were dealing with, what Hawa was hearing from the Shamayim. The next we have is this Birsha. So we're going to surf the wave on this Birsha. Khan is Birsha. Birsha is with iniquity, a king of Gomorrah. Alright? Wickedness. It is a prefix with wickedness. It means son of wickedness. So keep in mind, they try to attach this same wickedness onto your black, onto your swarthy. But this is them. Because their crime, which was an infraction of Hawa's laws, was not natural in the act of incest, which they then made a caste system for, right? A caste system for. And when they made this caste system, well, then they turn around and made your black, your pigmentation a crime. Within the language, they made it a color of sin, which is a crime, but a crime is an infraction of the laws of Hawa, and we are natural by Hawa, which is Tawa, Hawa. We are Tawa, Hawa, okay? Tawa, Hawa. That is natural by Hawa. So here we have this Birsha being a son of wickedness. This is the switcheroo. This is the projection. Here we have this Resha, which is wickedness, guilt, wickedness as in violence and crime against civil law, wickedness of enemies and ethical relations. Resha, wrong, especially moral. All right, keep this in mind. We're gonna get to this. All right. Again, we're talking about wickedness, violence, crimes, unrighteousness, wickedness, wicked, wealth wickedly. All right, falsehood, fraudulent. All of these is within the flow of these Canaanite kings, these Gomorrah kings. Let's dig into this some more, right? Because we still going. Rasa, which is Rasha, wicked. Everything dealing in wickedness, to make trouble, to vex, to do wrong, to disturb, to violate, to act wicked, to be wicked, to make a noise or tumult, right? We were talking about outcry when we were talking about crime, right? Tumult, to cry out, to be unrighteous, wicked, to part, to have an unrighteous cause, to be guilty. So we're talking about the vibration of these kings, those who wickedly desert the covenant. So this is why Hawa wasn't in the frequency. He wasn't feeling these people. Hawa wasn't feeling this because the sins were crying out unto the Shamayim. They had deserted the covenant. They had turned their back on Hawa. So of course Hawa is not feeling them. We're getting a lot of drip from these names. The next one is this Bella. Alright. Oh wait, what is this? Oh, okay. Alright, here we have this Bella, which is the destruction, and he's a king of Edom. Alright, son of Edom. And it is a devouring, something devoured, destruction. Alright, so this is a devouring, this frequency, this vibration, this name is a devouring. And it's from this term right here, this root, which is a swallowing, a devouring, a thing swallowed, a gulp, all right, to be swallowed, destruction, a devouring, a destruction, to be swallowed up. Bala, to swallow down, to swallow up, engulf, eat up, all right, to devour, to destroy, to eat up, to spend up, swallow down, and up. Especially within the idea of eagerness and greedy. So keep in mind, we were talking about of the mind, right? Imbibe, to mentally drink in. The knowledge, the idea of things. Lot's name being to do secretly, the secret arts, the incantations of sorts. Alright. So here we see a lot of wickedness just in the frequency of the names of these kings. right, and the next thing I want to check out is this Zoar, since this is what he was the king of. And this Zoar, it means insignificance. Straight up, right? It means insignificance. Little. To be little. All right, to be little. Insignificant. Smallness. The Zoar. And as we break this down, it is to be or grow insignificant, to grow small, to be the little ones, to be small, ignoble, to be brought low, to be brought low, to be brought low, to be small, to be or become mean and despised. All right, despise. So this is the frequencies that are in these Canaanite countries and cities. Again, this is all a so-called Canaanite flow. All right. And we're going to go ahead and continue to surf the wave on these names, because Abraham was also dealing with a confederacy of his own. All right. And it's with these guys right here we're going to go ahead and tap into. All right, these guys. So let's go ahead. Shalawam. All right, so the first name we got is this Mamre. Okay. And this Mamre was one of the ones Confederate with Abraham. And it says that it means strength or fatness. And this is an Amorite, one who allied himself with Abram. All right, Mamre from the sense of vigor, which is to be lusty. Again, we're talking about the frequency and the vibrations within these names. All right. So it just means fatness or strength. And they give us another breakdown talking about vigor, natural life force. So it's primitive root, which is to rebel. Hence, through the idea of maltreating, to wit, lash, self with wings as the ostrich in running, be filthy, lift up self. The idea of maltreating. Again, when we're talking this intoxicating or this imbibe, right? Mentally drink in the knowledge and ideas, to drink. So we're talking about a mistreating, a whipping, a lashing. Now, what else makes you think it's about, a whipping or a lashing as a form of maltreatment? It says to lash a horse with a whip to quicken its speed, to be contumacious, rebellious. All right. Whipping, maltreating, to whip, to lash. Okay, this is the frequency of those within this region, within this Sodom Valley. The next one that we got is this Eskol. This Eskol meaning cluster. Okay. And this ties into the grape and the grapes of the sort. So the more you dig into this guy's name, you're going to get clusters and stems of grapes, which show that as an Amorite, right? And these conglomerate tribes, these Confederate tribes, they had a very good specialty when it comes to the making of this potion, this wine. This was really something that they really did, right? Especially when we're now looking at the meaning of Lot's name. So we're surfing the wave on Eskol and how it relates back to the grape, to grapes. Okay. It also means to be dubious, to not have a clue. Okay, so we're still talking about graves. So this is Escol. This is Anir. Right, Anir. So we see these three. They're the ones who were Confederate with Abram. Anir, right? So surfing a wave on Anir, we have a boy. It means a boy. Alright, a boy, not a man, a boy. And we're talking about a Canaanite tribe. Right, so this is a Canaanite right here. Well, it says Amorite right there, but it says Canaanite right here. Very interesting. So this is more of that vibration, but let's see what also is being said within this term. Alright. Nahar, which means young man, servant, child, lad, young, children, youth, babe, boys, young, boy, lad, servant, youth, retainer. This is a boy as active from the age of infancy to adolescence, by implication a servant, also by interchange of sex, a girl of similar latitude in age, boy, child, damsel from the margin, lad, servant, young man, the youth. So considering that the Canaanites are merchants and traffickers, them having children as servants and putting children into servitude at such a young age is no surprise. This is a culture. This is a society that practices these things. So as we see, this is talking about the youth and them putting the youth into service at an early age. All right, and this is the society that we're dealing with, that we're talking about. These Amorites, these Canaanites, these Edomites, these Sodomites, those of Gomorrah, all of that flow within the Sidon Valley, the Canaanite Empire. Continuing on, as we've seen, this is in the Sidon Valley. Let's surf the wave on this Sidon. Sidon being field or plain, the flats. Now I find it interesting that it's also called Demon Valley. This Sidon, Demon Valley, right? Surf the wave. It's talking about a plain, a field, the plain of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, from the sinking of which the Dead Sea has come into existence. The sinking of Sodom and Gomorrah. So Gomorrah and Sodom sank. Hawa sank them into the sea. And this is where they say the so-called Dead Sea comes from. From the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Alright, and as we're talking about this looks like Sade. Also related to the word Sade, as in El Shaddai. Here we have field, land, cultivated field, home of wild beasts, plain, land, right? Field of wild beasts. Keep that in mind. Talking about home of wild beasts, still home of wild beasts. All right, in this open field, the home of beasts, the home of wild beasts, the open field. All right, so all of these things going into the wave, into the function of this term. Okay. And considering such, I think it's only right that we look up what Sodom is, because Sodom is the burning, the scorching, the burnt, volcanic or bituminous district, Sodom, that being from the tar, right? The bituminous activity, burning, the bituminous soil, which to me is interesting because it says right here, this is perhaps on the account liable to frequent fires because of this bituminous soil, right? Frequent fires, and it is the insinuation about the frequency of fires may be an attempt to account for the destruction by natural causes. No one who believes in the word of God can do this. All right. So they're attributing the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah to natural disasters by the judgment of Hawa. All right. The judgment of Hawa. And this reminds me of the Calafia area because I know a lot about the so-called Dead Sea being out west, and we're talking about the La Brea tar pits where this is evident, right? You can still see some of the so-called animals that existed in such a time. Tar pits, La Brea tar pits, when it comes to this bituminous soil, that which is frequently flammable, especially when we're talking about sequoia in the areas around, right? Carrying on, we're talking about Gomorrah. Gomorrah equals submersion, right? To be submerged. And we see that this Gomorrah is a culture, is a habitation, and it means depression. Again, we were talking about those who were brought low, right? That Sodom, I believe, which was brought low, to be brought low. Gomorrah, this is a culture, a habitation, a depression, a culture of depression, because it was one of the 4 cities in the valley of Sodom which were sunk into the Dead Sea. Hawa sunk them after raining down brimstone of crystallized trees in the form of comets down onto Sodom and Gomorrah. You see what's going on? So this is all within the wave of this so-called destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And when you simply ask, well, what was it that happened to Atlantis? According to the Greek philosopher Plato, who first described it, Atlantis was a powerful technology advanced island nation that sank into the ocean in a single day and night of violent earthquakes and floods. It was destroyed. You see what's going on? It was destroyed by gods as punishment for the Atlanteans' greed, pride, and failed attempt to conquer Athens. So we see how Gomorrah sank. This is the culture and habitation of depression. It sank. Keep everything that we've been mentioning, right? Everything that we've been bringing to your forefront. We're talking about that which is natural, right? And them making it a sin. That which is natural, they made into a sin being a crime, an infraction of Hawa's laws. But you were created Hawa, and their product comes from incest, as we'll get back to, which is a crime. And because of this crime, they have put you into a caste system. A caste system that distinguishes you for being black. They have made it a crime by saying that you are wicked. See what's going on? So they attach this wickedness onto you to say that your skin is the color of sin because it is without light, when we know black absorbs all light, which causes us to shine, to gleam, to flash, to blaze, to glow as the Ethiopian. And considering what happened to Atlantis, well, we just got everything that's going down in Sodom and Gomorrah. And we shall surf this wave. Halakha.
The potential consequences of first cousin marriages are tragic and devastating. My grandparents are first cousins. 5 of their daughters died in childhood, and 3 of my uncles were born deaf. At the time, no one knew why, because the facts were not known. Today, the medical facts are established, but the practice continues. Here in Bradford, where the Akhtars live, 75% of Pakistanis marry their first cousins. Anywhere between 4 and 10% of the children in these families will be born with genetic abnormalities. And these illnesses are often fatal. 1/3 of children with diseases caused by recessive genes will die before they turn 5.
We're talking 75% of the population, Shabbat. And I know you're thinking, man, how can such a thing be? Well, we just got how, right? And again, this is done on purpose. Because when you're natural by design, well, you're automatically in congruency with the laws of Hawa, that which is nature. And there is no separation. And this design that we're looking at is separated because it is a crime in the law of Hawa. It is an infraction. And we shall continue. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and tap into this wave. But before we do that, we like to give a big Shalawam and Max Hawada to the Aki Kuti Mayo. You know what I'm saying? For being one of the first ones within our personal flow, within this close-knit flow of ours, to bring this information out. You know what I'm saying? And congrats to you, Khan, for everything that you're getting accomplished. You know what I'm saying? If anyone's meant to correct the frequency in the wave when it comes to being a historian, it's definitely you, my nigga. So, you know, again, congrats to you on that wave. And with that being said, we're going to tap into this drip about these cheetahs. Let's get it.
After some researchers have been studying cheetahs for quite some time, they've decided that there's probably been some sort of genetic modification done somewhere along the way, and now they've deemed it as one of life's mysteries. Tell me more! Yeah, after studying cheetahs for quite some time, these researchers have determined that they're very odd in certain ways, meaning they seem to be part cat, part dog. They have the head of a cat, but then they have the body of a dog, even including down to the paws, because they don't have retractable claws. They look like a dog's paws and claws that are set in place. But it doesn't stop there. They also both bark and hiss, but they do not roar like most big cats. Okay.
Alright, and whenever you get something of this nature, something that it seems grafted, because this is evidence of grafting, you have different attributes for certain animals integrated and put into one to create something new. And this is how the archons, the watchers, ran genetic experiments all across the plane. This incest being a form of that. Anion.
Researchers are convinced that this is some sort of lab-grown animal because of the distinctions of it being part cat, part dog, and the fact that there is only one kind of cheetah, no variations. Oh, goody. What's that? Oh, after some researchers have been studying cheetahs for quite some time, they've decided that there's probably been some sort of genetic modification done somewhere along the way, and now they've deemed it as one of life's mysteries.
Now they deem it as one of life's mysteries because they're trying to figure out how this happened. And the fact that there's only one type of cheetah, well, that lets us know that this cheetah is a product of this incest, which is why we're looking at it, because this incest is described and seen as genetically modified organisms. So when we're hearing incest, that's exactly what we're getting. Genetically modified organisms. And yes, we're talking about you, Moab. Yes, we're talking about you, Canaan, because this is the flow. And them Israelites are back with the glow, and we are Tawa Hawa. We shall continue. Anion. So as I bring your attention back to Genesis 9:20, we're going to highlight where such an act was first taking place since the flood, since the destruction of the world before, during the days of Noah, where such wickedness was widely broadcast and promoted and practiced. So as we see at verse 21, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. So again, we see this drink of the wine, right? The same way we got this imbibe of the wine, this poisoning. We see what's going on. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Curse be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. All right, and a servant of servants. All right. And blessed be Hawa, the God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. You see what's going on? Servant. Canaan shall be his servant. So we see through the action of this wine and the partaking of this wine, another wicked act was, taking place. And this wicked act is no different than that which was practiced by Lot and his daughters, only this was Ham and his mother. Ham and his mother, he saw his father's nakedness, which is to see the nakedness of his own mother. This is broken down in the Levitical law. You go and look at Leviticus, and you can see that this nakedness, this uncovering of this nakedness, was actually the nakedness of his own mother. And from that, the result was Canaan, which is why Canaan was to be cursed. Come. This is why Canaan was to be cursed. So we're going to go ahead and continue to surf the wave. Anion. So seeing how Canaan was the first product of such an act, such an incestuous act, which was a crime against the laws of Hawa. Well, let's break down the meaning of his name, right? Because we're talking about a low land, and we got that one of these Canaanite kings, their name meant depression, right? Depression. Now, Canaan is lowland, which means to be humiliated. Canaan, a son of Ham, also the country inhabited by him. Canaan, a merchant, a traffic, right? He's a trafficker, a merchant, a trader. All right, the land of Canaanites. He's a son of Ham. The depressed low region. The depressed low region. All right, the depressed low region. And his name is tied into humiliation because of what he was born from, the result of his birth. Canaan, which is to be humbled, to be subdued, to be brought down, to be low, to bend the knee, hence to humiliate, vanquish, bring down into subjection, under humble, all right? To bring down into subjection, to bow the knee, to fall on one's knee, a widely extended root, being hollow of the knee, to bow down, to fold or lay together. You see what's going on? It's in his name. Hence to collect, to bind together. Bundles. This is like the heap that we saw. It says to be low, depressed, to be depressed in spirit. You see what's going on? To be brought low, subdued. So these are the frequencies of Canaan. To be depressed, low in spirit. Okay? And when we're talking about, let's get this depressed really quick. Depressed. To be pressed down, meaning dejected, lower in spirits. Right? So this is the opposite of imprint. To be an impression. The opposite. We are in impression of Hawa, a permanent image. Canaan is a depression, a lower in spirit, right? To be lower in spirit, lower in spirit. So as we see, Canaan has its dealing, its relation into being low, to being a servant of servants. This is within his nature, within their nature. But we have a hijack of all sorts going on, right? Especially since Canaan was the first to do the immigration. And it's not just that, it's also about what Canaan did. Right? Not only is he a product of his incest, but he turned his back against Hawa, against the covenant of Hawa, purposefully. Okay? Now, another term I like to look at is this Shana, right? Because when we were dealing with Abraham, I think we skipped over this Shana, right? Being the king of Amma. So this Shana is the splendor of the father. He is a Canaanite. Right? Shana. From the word Shana, which is to change, to alter. To change, to alter. To repeat, to do the second time. To be other, diverse. To be changed. To be repeated. To transfer to another place, to be changed. All right, so to be changed, the father changed. That's what it says this Shana is. This Shana is to be changed. So a father changed on Hawa, changed from the covenant. Right, they turned their back on Hawa. It also means a father's tooth, a Canaanite king. So I get a lot of slack. Oh, how did you connect Canaan into being Canaan? And I always tell people, especially when I was dealing with part 1, right? It's within the wave, it's within the flow. But this Canaan is a tooth, and this tooth is the name of this king, Shanab. And this king Shanab happens to be a Canaanite, Canaan, as in Canaan, a father's tooth. So his very name means canine, Shanab, as a Canaanite. Alright? Canaanite. And as we were talking about this valley of Sodom, where there's another nation that was mentioned that I would like to get into, which is referred to as the Horites. And as we can see, the Horites are the cave dweller or the troglodyte. And these would be the tribes that the Edomites and the Canaanites intermixed with, which was a forbidden law. This was forbidden, extremely taboo in the eyes of Hawa. So let's surf the wave on these Horites. See, when they want to mention hunter and gatherer, they want to project the image of these people. But according to Job, these are the results in the era of men made by base men, alright, who would cry for being pushed out of the civilization of mankind, pushed into the clefts and the rocks, as they cry out into the night, scream to cling back onto humanity once again. This is the image that modern society likes to project as the hunter-gatherer. But the hunter-gatherer is really Tawa Hawa, natural in design. For these Horites and the such were the heirs of man, base man, more fouler than the earth. So we have Horite, the cave dweller, the inhabitants of Mount Seir, the inhabitants of Edom, because I had mentioned Edom along with Canaan mixed into these tribes. Kori being a cave dweller, a troglodyte, a Korite or aboriginal Adumenian, Horims, Horites. Alright, Horite equaling cave dweller. Okay, cave dweller, a troglodyte, cave dweller. Okay, so let's continue to break this term down as we surf the wave on this Horite, this Kori. Alright, this meaning hole or cave, as in the same place that Lot and his daughters escaped into, a cavity, a socket, a den. Keep in mind the meaning of Lot's name. We're talking about a hole, as in an eye socket, hole as in a hiding place for man, right? A dwelling of outcast people. You see it? A dwelling of outcast people. We can't make this up. This is a dwelling of outcast peoples, those who are not Tawa Hawa, natural by Hawa. Alright, here we have a hole used as a window. It is not rather a hole in a door, but it is a cavity, a cavern, a den of wild beasts. You see what's going on? A den of wild beasts. Let's continue to break this down even further as we go. Surfing a wave. Here we have core, which is hole, right? Hole, to crevice, to bore. The crevice of a serpent, the cell of a prison. You see what's going on? The cell of a prison as hiding places of men, a construct, the hole of an ass, a serpent. This was the same frequency as Tadal, the title, right? You go back and surf the wave when we were talking about Tidal. He has the same meaning, so this is how we know these vibrations are one and the same. They flow together. We're talking about a hole as that of a viper, used of an abominable subterranean prison, subterranean prison. Okay? This is the projection of this Canaanite society, this culture, the inhabitants of these Canaanites, those of Sodom and Gomorrah that still live on today. They still practice these ancient ways by way of the Moabites, as they have put you into a caste system based off your skin, your pigmentation, your hue, of being tawny, of being black, of being swarthy. They said that this was a crime. It was an infraction against the laws of Hawa. But we know we are Tawa Hawa, which is to be natural, and there is no separation. There is no separation. And in fact, we're going to get that breakdown right now. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Hawa. So here we see down in chapter 14 at verse 17, right? Abram was blessed by Melchizedek. And Melchizedek, right? Well, let's surf the name of Melchizedek. So we're going to get this Melchizedek on you in real time. All right, so what is this Melchizedek? 44, 42. So let's check this, right? Is it 44, 42? Yup. All right, so here we have Melchizedek. All right. Now I want you to pay attention. Cause peep the flow, right? When we're surfing the wave on Melchizedek, oh, you know what? I didn't even do it. Let's peep the flow. So his name is a breakdown from two different names, right? This being Malak as in king. Let's surf the wave on this one. On this Sadak, right? So this Sadak, which is righteousness, justice, righteousness, righteously right, a righteous cause, right? The opposite of unrighteousness, justice. You see, of the law, you see what's going on? Of the judges, rulers, and kings, also in government, of the law, of the kingship, the Davidic kingship, right? Of Jerusalem as seat of just government, as Hawa's attribute. You see what's going on? As Hawa's attribute. And as we bring it down, we'll see that it is the righteous, which is natural, moral, or legal. You see what's going on? Melchizedek's name being natural, having no separation from Hawa, to be righteous, to be of this Melchizedek Sadak flow, is to be natural in righteousness, which is of moral and legal vibration. That is the opposite of everything we've been getting from this Canaanite society, this Canaanite culture. The opposite. See what's going on? That which is natural justice, to be righteous in the sight of the Creator. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with when we're talking about the natural ways of things. which is in opposition to these Horites. This is how we know we are Towa Hawa. Carrying on, we're going to surf the wave on this Seir, because they say they were out of Mount Seir. The Horites belong to Mount Seir. Seir equaling hairy or shaggy. The patriarch of the Horites, the inhabitants of Edom before the descendants of Esau, the Edomites. Alright, this is the land of Edom, apparently also called Mount Seir. It was extending from the Dead Sea, so from the land of Sodom and Gomorrah. Seir formed rough Seir, a mountain of Idumedia, and its aboriginal occupants. You see what's going on? As in hairy, right? Well wooded. Again, we're talking about people who were pushed out. Right? Where did we get that? People who were casted out, an outcast people. So we're talking about an outcast people. Those who live in the mountains, they were outcasted from the midst of society. Right? The natural Bahuwa. We're talking about a hairy, rough, right? As in that of the wild beasts. The Horite, who were bristled with the trees. They were clothed in trees, right? Bristled, rough, of this nature. Let's continue to flow though. Just like how we did with Horite. We dig even deeper. We get Seir, which is a kid, a goat, a devil, a satyr, hairy or rough. Hairy as in he-goat, which is a buck, a sacrificial animal. A satyr, it refers to a demon possessed like a goat, a demon. Now we have Seir, right? Shaggy, as in Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby being the same thing. Shaggy also being dog, right? Like Scooby being a dog, which is Shaggy, a he-goat by analogy, a fawn, a devil, a goat, a hairy kid, rough satyr. These are people. A he-goat, just like how we got with the cheetahs, genetically modified. People who were outcasted. Alright, he-goats, hairy demons, inhabiting desolate ruins. Just like all the rest of the vibrations we've been getting. Satyr, which are demons. Those living in holes and caverns like snakes. Alright, now here we have this hairy, rough, he-goat, Hircus, which is the same as Hirtus or Hirsutus. It is the name of a goat and other animals too. So it's not just goat, it's other hairy animals. This is also a she-goat. You see what's going on? A she-goat. Wood demons, satyrs, resembling he-goats, inhabiting deserts. Alright? So this is what's going on. Surfing the wave. Alright, and this is the same thing. So here we have who the Horites are and identified them as the ones as so-called cavemen, cave dwellers, those who were outcasted. Right? Outcasted. Cut off from the rest of the natural Hawa. Natural by Hawa. Cut off as the demons, the goats. Alright? And it was in this term, hairy, through the term Hircus, and hirsutis that the wave really got cracking. Because it was in that I discovered the term hypertrichosis, which is werewolf syndrome. Okay? Werewolf syndrome. We're talking about hominins. You see it for yourself, hominins. A type of human. Right? This hypertrichosis, also known as werewolf syndrome, is an abnormal amount of hair growth over the body. The two distinct types of hypertrichosis are generalized hypertrichosis, which occurs over the entire body, and localized hypertrichosis, which is restricted to a certain area. Hypertrichosis can be either congenital, present at birth, or acquired later in life. The excess growth of hair occurs in areas of the skin, with the exception of androgen-dependent hair of the pubic area, face, and axillary regions. Alright, this is Petrus Gonzalez, which is known as the Hairy Man. And he was in the court. Alright, the court. You see him? So this is how I got to the canines and the dog-headed people, having references as wild gentlemen, right? Or a Canarian werewolf, which is important when you surf the waves in these drops. Start from part 1. All right, Canarian werewolves, canines, Canaanites. Let's go back to this hypertrichosis. Now we see hirsutism, right? Just as we got right here with Seir, the goats, the he-goats, the demons, the devils, the cavemen, the Horites, hirsutis. Hirsutism, hypertrichosis, is oftenly mistaken as classified hirsutism. Hirsutism is a type of hypertrichosis exclusive to women and children. Exclusive to women and children. So when we're surfing a wave, we know that this is the product of those using their women. These men choosing these women to produce children that go on and carry the hirsutis. The males producing the hypertrichosis. All right. Resulting from an excess of androgen-sensitive hair growth. Patients with hirsutism exhibit patterns of adult male hair growth. Chest and back hair are often present on women with hirsutism. All right, and this is this is the wave on such a thing. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look. Anion. This is a troglodyte. When you search troglodyte Niger, you tell me what you get. You tell me what you get when you research troglodyte Niger, which we know is really the trigger word, the switcheroo, You have to know who you are to know who you are not. This is the way. Halakha. For we are natural Bahawa, that is Tawa, Hawa. And we shall carry on. Max Ahab, Shalawam. This isn't a dream. This isn't a fantasy. To some, to most, this is a reckoning. This is a nightmare. Here we have the invasion of the Therians in Argentina. Invasion of the Therians in Argentina. What is a Therian? Let's surf the wave.
Caminando en cuatro patas, con máscaras y con colas de animales, no es una broma, es una tendencia global, se llaman Therians, y sus videos están explotando en redes sociales por lo extraño, por lo intenso y por lo viral. Los Therians son personas que aseguran sentirse identificadas profundamente con un animal específico, no es un disfraz, no es una actuación, para ellos es identidad. En los videos se les ve caminando en cuatro patas, corriendo, saltando, usando orejas, máscaras, colas, incluso marcando territorio. Y aquí viene lo importante, no son furries. Los furries usan trajes para interpretar personajes fantásticos, pero no creen ser animales. Los Therians sí dicen tener una conexión real, psicológica o espiritual con el animal que representan. Por eso esta tendencia genera tantas reacciones, porque no ocurre solo en eventos, sino en la vida diaria, calles, parques, plazas, escuelas. La pregunta es simple. ¿Estamos frente a una nueva forma de identidad o solo ante la moda viral del momento? Internet decide. ¿Tú qué opinas?
What is your opinion, Shabbatai?
¿Has visto jóvenes caminando en cuatro patas, con máscaras y con colas de animales? No es una broma, es una tendencia global, se llaman Therians, y sus videos están explotando en redes sociales por lo extraño, por lo intenso y por lo viral. Los Therians son personas que aseguran sentirse identificadas profundamente con un animal específico, no es un disfraz, no es una actuación, para ellos es identidad. En los videos se les ve caminando en cuatro patas, corriendo, saltando, usando orejas, máscaras, colas, incluso marcando territorio. Y aquí viene lo importante, no son furries. Los furries usan trajes para interpretar personajes fantásticos, pero no creen ser animales. Los Therians sí dicen tener una conexión real, psicológica o espiritual con el animal que representan. Por eso esta tendencia genera tantas reacciones, porque no ocurre solo en eventos, sino en la vida diaria, calles, parques, plazas, escuelas. La pregunta es simple. ¿Estamos frente a una nueva forma de identidad o solo ante la moda viral del momento? Internet decide. ¿Tú qué opinas? ¿Has visto jóvenes caminando en cuatro patas?
This is an ancient innate connection. I'm not one to argue with, I'm just an observer. But as I observe the wave, I collapse the pattern. Because we are the embedded pattern of Hawa. We will carry on, Shabbatai. See, when you're free from out the mind of a hijack, and when you're surfing the wave on all hijacks, dodging all hijacks at all costs, well, something like this isn't new to us, nor is it shocking or surprising. For us, this is just the way. And we've been dodging our hijacks since the beginning. You just gotta tap in and surf the wave. Let's get it.
Man, imagine seeing some shit like this. You out there bushing around in the woods. You feel what I'm saying? Loki hit one of them portals. You bump into these motherfuckers. What you gonna do? How you getting away? Man, imagine seeing some shit like this. You out there bushing around in the woods. You feel what I'm saying? Loki hit one of them portals. You bump into these motherfuckers. What you gonna do? How you get?
It's already happened, huh? You see it. It's already happened. This already has happened. We've been surfing the wave since we began. We began with such drip, informing you that this has already happened. But what you got to do is make sure you got your comfortable seat right here on the magic ether bus, and you got to surf waves that is 9 above the barrier. For there is no separation between us and our Hawa. For we are Tawa, Hawa. You gotta tap in, cause we taking off soon. We almost out of here, baby. We already won. And our journey is to go back home. No more recycling centers for us. To the monad and some.
Man, imagine seeing some shit like this. You out there bushing around in the woods. You feel what I'm saying? Loki hit one of them portals. You bump into these motherfuckers. What you gonna do? How you getting away?
The only way to get away is right here with us at the Naturalist. And with that being said, Max Ahab, Max Shalawam, Max Anion in charge to everyone surfing the wave. That is you, the rare ones. You, and I appreciate everyone hitting me up, sending me that energetic charge, man. Max Ahab to the wave, and to all my ox and aquas, and to my rare one. For real, we surfing waves. Continue to surf the wave, continue to be fearless in your journey. And remember, Hawaii is with you, always and forever. And so am I. Till the next time, Shabbat, Anion.